Observers came out of business places and stood along city streets. None garnered more attention than the leader of the opposition. Dr. Kenny Anthony was surrounded by supporters who called for his return to government when our cameras caught up with him by the Castries market. He says he came out to observe the public sector employees who demonstrated on Tuesday against the government.
I wanted to see what was happening and get a good sense, like everybody else, the extent of anger among public officers and other persons.
A former president of the St. Lucia Teachers Union was also interested in the turnout. Virginia Albert Poyot demonstrated alongside teachers and applauded their participation. She says public servants have shown their commitment to the cause.
That's a good number. In terms of teachers and public servants, that's a good turnout. And from reports we are getting, some of the major sectors are on a standstill now. The spirit of the group right now is showing you that they are ready until they get what they want. Because if they had not come out, then there could be some kind of compromise. But right now, I think they are not.
It's a democratic country and we have a right to fight for what they want. My government don't have money, no money. The teachers have a right. Because they have no right.
Dr. Anthony expressed sympathy for public sector employees. He also placed blame for the impasse on the Prime Minister. Similar sentiments were expressed by Albert Poyot, who called out Stevenson King for what she says is disrespect for workers.
I really had wished that there was an earlier resolution to this problem, because it could have been resolved with greater flexibility, particularly by the government. And the rights of the workers have to be protected and respected. And it's unfortunate that what has happened is a very bad precedent for future negotiations between unions and employers.
I think that's the worst thing the Prime Minister did. In terms, I think he should have kept the union leaders in dialogue until they arrive at something where both parties were happy. But to impose it on them, I think that has infuriated the public servants. They have gotten very angry because it has further showed that government has no regard for them.
Last week, Dr. Anthony called on the government to bite the bullet and pay public sector employees their due 7.5%.
We're adding fuel to the fire Thursday night, supporting the industrial action by government workers, who are demanding that the administration pay a 7.5% increase due this month. Dr. Anthony says the public must move with the SLP quickly to get the present administration out of office before there's nothing left to govern.
We have to think hard about hastening the demise of this government, saying to this government that it has broken its trust with the people of St. Lucia. It has destroyed their lives, and the time has come. The time has come to go.
The Trade Union Federation has called on the Prime Minister to intervene to pacify on a matter that could blow up. The TUF, which is the umbrella body for labor unions on the island, says it had requested that negotiations on wage increases for public sector workers begin by mid-November. However, the Federation's president, Julian Monrose, says his organization got a response from the government negotiating team indicating that talks will begin as soon as possible. And in his view, this is unacceptable. Monroe says if the government is not back at the table by Thursday, public sector unions will begin to mobilize their members so they can get instructions on the next move.
What I can tell you is that the leadership of the unions and the staff associations, we are determined that that matter needs to be resolved, and at the soonest. And again, what I say is if we are unable to resolve it, then we must do the natural thing, which is to go back to the membership. That would be left as to when the general membership of the various units would be called. That is left to the leadership of the various trade unions and staff associations.
While the Trade Union Federation would not disclose the hike they're seeking, sources close to the negotiations tell us they're seeking for a 24% increase divided equally among the years. The Federation president says their proposal is not unreasonable.
Our proposal to government is in keeping with the position that we must ensure that our members are not made worse off and that government can afford.
Last week, government announced it would set up a committee to review the salaries of senior public servants and parliamentarians, and Mr. Monrose has no issue with that.
If it is felt that senior public servants and ministers require a salary increase and they've set up a review commission to look at it, then we cannot have a problem with that. But we're saying that it's immoral to continue to think that you can give those who already have more, give them more, and not look after the interests of those who are working hard every day and not seeking to help them in their plight.
The Trade Union Federation says that it expects wage negotiations to be concluded by December 12 this year, but would not be too worried if that date is not realized, but significant progress is being made.
While officials of the government negotiating team appeared reticent.
To switch from thing to come ahead with this?
No, I can't comment on that.
But so are you hoping that negotiations will be going on smoothly, and you're hoping that?
Well, they've always been going on smoothly. There was never a problem.
Representatives of the Trade Union Federation seemed upbeat ahead of the crucial sit-down on wage negotiations Wednesday afternoon. The president of the TUF was cautiously optimistic prior to the meeting.
And we're going to hear what the government has to offer today. We hope that the offer will be reasonable and that everything will be done to ensure that the negotiations conclude in a reasonable time.
Conference held at the SLTU headquarters late Wednesday evening, he described the government's counter-offer of 0% as insulting.
We were told to take 0 for the first year, 0 for the second year, 0 for the third year. And in place of that, in lieu of that, to accept a one-time payment of $1,000. We indicated to the government negotiating team that we find the offer insulting, and therefore we weren't able to continue any discussions with them.
CSA members did not mince words when discussing a proposed wage freeze from the government negotiating team. Meeting Monday morning at the CSA Center, they vowed not to consider what they described as an insulting and disrespectful offer of 0% over the next 3 years with a $1,000 lump sum payment. CSA President Mary Isaac says the government's offer is unacceptable.
We never in our wildest dreams fought government, a Labour Party government who's supposed to be caring about workers, who care about worker issues, would come to us with a 000 and a 1,000 lump sum and telling us it could be paid before Christmas if we agree. That is almost like a bribe. You know, it really is unacceptable. That is very unprofessional.
There were fireworks at Monday's meeting of the Civil Service Association with its members. The membership agreed to stand by the union's 16% proposal. The CSA will be taking that proposal back to the government negotiating team. CSA President Mary Isaac urged the members not to play politics with the situation and urged them to look out for themselves as the government was pursuing its own interests.
I do not feel that people have to put politics ahead of their daily work. Okay? Let us not put politics ahead of our daily work. Because at the end of the day, the politician will pull up his pocket, and that of his family, and that of his friends, and your pocket will still be empty. So let us not play politics that way.
The meeting started with the CSA executive updating its members on what transpired, but soon the temperature would begin to rise. So emotional was one member that without realizing it, he said that the membership would have to take the horns by the bull. He meant, of course, members would have to take the bull by the horn. Reports of a 30% salary increase allegedly being contemplated by government ministers.
I say enough is enough. Enough is enough. Enough is enough.
I find that if you are telling me that things are so tight, you should not be looking for a 30% increase.
The CSA executive referred to the last strike by civil servants where they demanded a 14.5% increase. The executive noted that at that time they were told by the then UWP government that if it paid the desired increase, the economy would have collapsed. But that did not transpire. The government negotiating team and the Trade Union Federation met for 3 hours. According to the union, it produced solid evidence to substantiate its 16% wage increase proposal. The union's president says the government team sought clarification on some of the issues brought forward, but made it clear there were no rebuttals. Another meeting between the two parties has been scheduled for next Friday.
We are hoping that the negotiations will proceed speedily and that we will come to an amicable solution.
They had some concerns that the negotiation didn't start on a bad foot. Would you say that with what's happening now?
Well, we took today and made sure we correct the situation. So today meeting was a good meeting in terms of procedure, in terms of we doing what we were supposed to do. And we believe that everything is well poised for good negotiations.
One thing is noticeable, and that is Mr. Monrose came out of Friday's meeting looking a lot more relaxed than he did at the first one when he and his members walked out prematurely. Shortly after that meeting, Mr. Monrose had indicated to the media that the government is capable of paying the 16%, and there are areas where the administration could be more prudent in its spending.
My current monthly package is as follows. Basic salary $6,218.39, telephone allowance $450, traveling $1,000, entertainment $400. The total $8,068.39. My contract also allows me to receive a gratuity of 25% of my basic salary.
Minister for the Public Service Dr. James Fletcher had to be brought into the negotiations Wednesday afternoon. But the Trade Union Federation says Prime Minister Dr. Kenny Anthony and not Dr. Fletcher has the power to make a difference in the negotiations. On that basis, they want to meet with the Prime Minister.
Not even the Cabinet can give any mandate. We inquired as to when the Prime Minister will be back. We were told he'll be back on Friday. So we informed Dr. Fletcher, that the Honourable Minister of the Public Service, that we will stand ready in our willingness to resolve that matter. We stand ready to meet the Prime Minister if he's willing on Saturday. That we will forego all our private commitments to meet with him to try to find an amicable solution.
The head of the government negotiating team, on the other hand, says the options of the negotiations were reviewed, but both parties have not reached a conclusion.
I don't know if they'll be seeing something positive. As I say, the negotiations continue. We've reviewed our offer, we've put some other things on the table, and they have reaffirmed their offer, and so we need to discuss it further.
Mr. Gill stated that the meeting ended well, but the Minister for the Public Service came storming out, saying that he had no comments at the time. Julian Monrose, meanwhile, says the government negotiating team has no flexibility, as they must return to a subcommittee of cabinet every time there's a negotiation. That, according to the president of the Trade Union Federation, prolongs the process.
They gave us a number of options. The best that they put on the table was a 0.03%. After we caucused, we indicated to them that we were unable to accept their position. Any of the options offered, 0.01%, 0.02%, 0.03%. In fact, and they indicated that their preferred option is a 0.00, $100,000.
Mr. Monrose says the Trade Union Federation's last option was 555, which amounts to 15% wage increase. The government has offered a wage freeze and a one-off payment of $1,000 to every civil servant, which the Trade Union Federation has rejected.